The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Triversity Talk. I am Stephen Bloomer-Teague.
And I am Wendy Stewart-Kaplan, and thank you for joining us tonight on this 105-degree evening with the heat index. Is it hot or what?
Boy, I mean, I can't even imagine what it's like in the city. I mean, it was pretty miserable in Milford, I can say that.
At least in Milford, though, you have trees. I think the trees make a difference.
I was in the center all day. There wasn't a tree in sight.
But at least you were in air conditioning, Stephen, right?
Yes, we have air conditioning at our center now. So for anybody who wants to come to open hours and escape the cold for the next month, feel free to stop on by. Yeah. But yes, it was very nice having that AC. Normally, since I've been going to Triversity anything, in the summer, you had those little, I don't even know what you call those fans, those box fans.
Oh, box fans,
like
yeah.
Five or six of them. So then you can't hear anything. But
no, but you know what? I'm amazed at how much a box fan can cool things off, too. It's really quite amazing. And when you don't have anything else at all, I mean, right, you're grateful for it. Yeah, well, I'm glad we're in at least cool weather. What have we got coming up at Triversity?
So we have this won't be everybody's cup of tea, but I think it's certainly a lot of our cup of tea. The LGBTQ community, we often don't get the good end of the stick when it comes to religion sometimes. But many of us remain spiritual in spite of being burned by our religions. And so we have this little talk called SOS, or Sharing Our Spirit, where we discuss a topic concerning spirituality. So you can come, you can talk and express yourself. You can bring prayers and meditations. And then afterwards we have wine and desserts. So
afterwards we have wine. Right.
What could be better?
As is totally fitting after you've bared your soul. You can really fill your soul up with wine.
Absolutely. And this is going to take place at mine and Richard's place. Cool. If you want to learn more, go to our website, triversitycenter.org/events, and that'll take you right to SOS. We'd love to have you.
It's exciting. I intend to be there, Stephen, because I'm a sinner. Okay. And I drink wine. No, I'm coming because
I'm a sinner who's also drinks. And so I will be there.
A drunken sinner. No, but I feel what you're offering is very important right now, no matter where you are on your religious spectrum. These are extremely hard times for people emotionally. What it's doing. Yeah.
Have you seen Pray Away?
Talk about that. I want to see it. It's on Netflix. I mean,
the new documentary on Netflix about the ex-gay movement, and about all the different folks who initially headed what is known as Exodus, which was the #1 ex-gay Christian therapy, reparative therapy organization, and how those initial founders all ended up falling away because they were still gay, and that unbearable guilt. Right. I mean, by the end of it, I was sobbing. That's all I can say.
Stephen, was this conversion therapy? I don't know the movement. Was it?
Yeah, so it's called conversion therapy, reparative therapy. It has all sorts of names, but that's what it is. It's conversion therapy. It's trying to use, therapy, prayer, sometimes some sort of behavioral actions to change your behavior and make you straight.
And just make people feel worse about themselves is what it does.
Yeah, absolutely. But people are fighting back. I mean, and people have come to the light. I mean, the thing that was so poignant about the film is that the people who started this movement were very much victims themselves, because they were gay people who had been told their entire lives that they were wrong and that what they were was disease. So, I mean, while what they did wasn't good, you learned to at least be able to show some sympathy for what happened to them too.
Right. And some empathy. Yeah, I want to be sure to totally catch it on Netflix. Well, speaking of being empathetic, I'm very excited about tonight's guest.
That's a transition.
Because you know what? Our guest could have done anything with her skill that she has that she's going to talk about. Okay, but our guest tonight, Marissa Pezzullo, is a cosmetic tattoo artist, but she's also a paramedical tattoo artist. And she's going to talk to us how she's using her unique skill to enhance the lives of transgender and non-binary people. So we are totally thrilled to have her. How fantastic. Come on in, Marissa.
Welcome, Marissa.
Hi, thank you for having me on.
It's so great to see you. So Stephen was very excited when I guess you guys met. You came into the center.
Yes.
Which is why it's so great to have the center open. You know, look, we get people like you, Marissa, right?
Well, I tell you, Marissa was one of the first people that contacted us via, like, I'm assuming the contact page on the website.
Yes.
And you told the story and you wanted to offer like an areola clinic. And I mean, the first thing I do is call my vice president, Simone, and I'm like, what am I missing?
Right, let's talk areola.
I'm the coolest executive director. And I'm like, and Simone tells me, and I'm like, that's really incredible that you reached out and, and we started a dialogue, and already I learned something from that. So thank you.
Yeah, it is really incredible. I would love to talk to you about your focus in this particular area. And for people that don't know, by the way, I've said areola incorrectly my entire life. I had to call up Simone to get the proper pronunciation. But for those who don't know, an areola is around the nipple area. But when people transition, and this is what I want you to go into too, Marissa, the difference between breasts that you get with hormones or breasts that are artificial and done by a plastic surgeon, and what you have to do to create the areola, which, people that have them take it for granted, but you're creating them, which is so amazing. Thank you, by the way.
Thank you.
So please talk away.
Okay, so where do I begin? So I really got into paramedical tattooing. It was over the pandemic. I'm like, how can I broaden my services? And I had been involved in an online conference, and I saw that one person was teaching paramedical tattooing, which involved areolas, belly buttons, and scar camouflage. So when the time came to it and everything opened back up, I flew to Texas and I took her course, and it was so in-depth and so amazing to learn that, like, on a flat surface, you can create something so three-dimensional. So while doing that, it was amazing. I had a lot of breast cancer survivors, a lot of just cosmetic tattooing. And then I was like, there is a whole tapped into community that maybe people don't know need this service. So I began doing a little digging around, and I was like, who can I reach out to? I had talked to a few friends in the city, and they were like, well, I'll let you know. I don't know who to guide you to. And then I had a friend from Milford who was like, you should reach out to Stephen at Triversity.
Yes.
And so I did. So basically with areola tattooing for gender affirmation, there's a few different cases. I'm going to go over my notes a little bit.
No, that's fine. And please take your time, because this is new, not only for us, this is new information that you are giving out there in the world. This segment will be archived in the YouTube channel. So we want people that are looking for this kind of help to be able to go on and learn this.
Perfect. So with hormone therapy, as the tissue builds up, it becomes extremely soft. It is not like an implant. It's just more of a fatty tissue. So with that, you get a lot of the actual breast growing itself, but not the areola or the nipple as much. So from those transitioning from male to female, you might want to enhance that outer areola to fit the new breast size that you have. And then additionally, you can get implants as well to really try to go for what you're achieving. But if you're with top surgery, going from female to male, most people it's a total mastectomy. And in that process, you have a lot of pigment loss during the process.
Right, of course.
Or there could be periareolar incision scars around the areola itself that are noticeable and may bother the person. It's crazy because in the United States, most insurances don't cover a nipple graft because they totally have to.
Is that what it's called on the form, nipple graft?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's when they totally take off the nipple areola and reshape it and resize it. It's just mind-boggling to me that little bit is not covered by insurance, but thank God there are services like this,
right,
to be able to achieve that look. And then in some cases as well, the nipple may come necrotic during the process of surgery and die off. I've seen that in other cases as well. And so with that,
when a necrotic tissue is tissue that rots, right? So you're without a nipple.
Yeah, I actually had a patient the other day that came in and she had a breast reduction years ago and they didn't know it was going to happen. One was completely healthy and fine and the other became necrotic and had to be removed.
Wow.
And you never know what kind of complications can occur from these types of surgeries. So, and then it's not just a tattoo. It's helping someone affirm their gender identity, and it's being able to look at yourself in the mirror and feeling that gender euphoria and being able to validate that and feel confident.
Right.
So
psychologically, what it does for people is really quite amazing. And is this a fairly new avenue for people to go down?
I think so, because I have had a lot of friends who have transitioned and some of them were left with no areolas whatsoever. And they were okay with that because they felt validated. But now I feel like in the past few years, it has become more popular. Of course, this surface tattooing has been around forever, but I feel like now when there is open dialogue happening and people are more accepting, I think it's just going to keep moving forward from this point on.
Oh, I would agree.
Absolutely. I mean, I just to tell everybody, I encouraged Marissa to watch the episode where we interviewed Dr. Safer and Matthew Bainey from Mount Sinai before this episode, because I was like, this is like the perfect follow-up to that. And the insurance topic, I think, is so interesting because so it's hard enough to get insurance companies to cover these life-saving surgeries because they deem them strictly cosmetic. But then when they do cover them, you have to worry about this extra element because, you know, top surgery without a nipple, I mean, that does not affirm you in any way because you don't look and you don't see a chest.
Right. And you end up being disappointed and probably depressed at how things turned out. Transitioning, and everyone in our group knows this, is extremely complicated. I mean, to use a terrible figure out there like a Caitlyn Jenner, making it sound, like this is one-stop shopping. You can, it's not, it's such a big process. I will say now more than ever, there's more and more things available to people to make the transition smoother. You adding your element in, I think, is absolutely fantastic, okay? Because I never thought about that till Steven said he met you. I just assumed everybody who was male to female ended up with the perfect boobs and
Yeah.
lived happily ever after. But that's not what happens. And you brought up something, the surgeries that can end up, that don't work.
Mhm.
All right. And you end up with no nipple. That's just awful. And to not have insurance pay for that, that's even doubly awful.
Yeah. And then the effect it has on your mental health is crazy. And I was watching a few case studies recently of another mentor I have. She has an entire course for gender affirming tattoos, which is where I really got into this.
Can you say her name?
Yeah, her name is Jodie Stosky.
Okay.
She's out of Canada, but she talks to her clients and does a few case studies, and they're like, okay, we've made it this far and you're supposed to feel so happy, but you look into the mirror and you're still not there yet.
We've heard that, right?
Like in this long journey, this book, that tattoo for a lot of people is like the final chapter.
Wow.
Yeah. And then statistically speaking, trans people face high probability of discrimination in social settings, especially medical settings, and have historically faced economic marginalization. That's why I wanted to do this clinic for free. After going through so much, to just take that ease off, I would love to do that.
Marissa, you're an angel sent from above. I mean, what you're saying really is so incredible. And I love that you're saying it on here. I am curious, what is in you, Marissa, the person that made you take this direction? Because we all know there's certainly, like in Milford, my God, there's tattoo artists, everybody's inked. Why did you choose this particular direction?
I just felt it was my calling, like I went to art school. I love art. I love sculpting. I love painting, and I love the human form. I've always been attracted to portraiture, all of that. And then as time went on, I was like, wow, I love makeup. I love making people feel good, doing eyebrows and lips and all that. I love doing that. But this is a special kind of feeling that it gives me. It makes me feel happy. I feel good at the end of the day when someone else feels good. And I love helping my breast cancer survivors. Like, that's an amazing feeling. But I just knew there was more out there. And it's almost, you would say, a minority of people that like are overlooked. So if I could extend my hand in helping them, why not?
Of course.
I have so many friends in the community that I just felt that's where I was led to go.
I tell you, Marissa, you're one of the few allies we've had on. I mean, most of our guests are typically LGBTQ plus.
Well, those
but I mean, it's always wonderful for people to see like a really good ally, somebody who's here to help the community. I mean, you might not even necessarily think of yourself in those terms. What helps you be so supportive of others who are in the minority?
I mean, I went to school in the city, and I guess that was when I went to the Fashion Institute of Technology. And
yeah, of course.
There's so many different groups of people, and I became such good friends with everybody. And it doesn't matter to me what anybody looks on the outside. It's on the inside. That's what matters. And
was that your first big exposure to the LGBTQ community?
I mean, so I grew up in Milford. There is an LGBTQ community, but that was where I really met, I guess, trans people for the first time, non-binary, all of that. And they're some of my closest friends. And the people I have the best connection with. And I was always, they would say, their token straight friend when we went out.
I love it. You're going to get the Ally of the Year award. The whole story is so inspirational. How much of how you were raised has to do with like this awareness and sensitivity to doing what you do?
I mean, my parents raised me to be a compassionate, loving person and to just treat people as I'd want to be treated.
Right.
So that's always where I've gone with it. And it's good to be kind. Like,
I totally love that.
Yeah.
Steve, we need to start doing T-shirts from incredible things that guests like Marissa says. It's good be kind.
I think it's a good idea. Philip Sullivan, if you're watching, yes, jump on it, buddy.
Right. It's good. It's good to be kind. And what does kindness do for you? How does it make you feel inside?
I mean, it makes me feel great. I am a strong believer of the energy that you put out, you will get in return. So I like to just send out positive energy. And I mean, we all have our bad days, but I come from, if someone's having a bad day and takes it out on me, I try to be understanding, and people go through hard times. So it's good to be kind and understanding of people. You don't know what their circumstances or anything.
And I mean, for you, I mean, typically, I'm sure, deal with people who are going through very hard times. I mean, dealing with breast cancer survivors. I mean, you know, maybe not even a full-on survivor might still be dealing with it, you know, and that you have to be there and be supportive as best you can. I mean, what's that like? I mean, how do you handle that?
That's a lot to have on a person.
Yeah, it is very emotional, but it's also empowering. So a lot of my paramedical clients, like, at first they don't know how to feel, but then they call me or text me and they're like, you don't understand what you've done. Like, I feel like I could put all this stuff behind me and move forward. It was like, you don't think that a tattoo is the closure you need until you have it.
Really unbelievable. I guess it's about not just how you feel, but I mean, you said it earlier, you look in the mirror and you feel complete.
Yeah.
Beautiful. You know, you feel right.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're helping people achieve their right. Now, I'm curious. I don't know a lot about tattooing other than time I've spent in Africa with tribal people where tattooing is a way of life for them. They're tattooed not with permanent ink, but they are painted all the time. And it is the inking they do there is so unbelievable. But that's my only exposure. So can you share with all of us, like, some of the challenges that are involved with making a good shaped areola and one that'll pass? How do you make an areola that'll pass?
You just, honestly, it doesn't have to be perfect, because no two areolas are the same. And you have that
down at my breast now.
You have that artistic license to just make it what you want. There's honestly not much can go wrong in doing that if you're doing it correctly. And for me, like, I studied color theory extensively in college. So that's the most fun part for me, is matching something to someone's skin tone or their existing areola. That's my favorite part. And then I sit with my client and we discuss size, shape, what they're looking for. And we kind of come together and create it together. And
so amazing.
Honestly, like, people think it takes, like, so for eyebrows it takes 2 to 3 hours, and I love doing that. But areolas, they're just so much fun, and they don't even take that long. But I love to talk to people, so I'll be there for 2 hours, but the whole process takes about an hour.
Oh my God, to make such a huge difference in
somebody's life.
Right, Stephen?
Yeah.
That is so. Yeah, it's impressive.
It always seems like sometimes we try to make things so much more difficult than they need to be. And you know, so I mean, in 1 hour you can have this completion that you might not be able to get it all during a surgery, you know?
Yeah.
Are there any medical facilities that are working with you and what you're doing?
Yes, I am working with Crystal Run right now, with Dr. Sachs. She is a breast surgeon, reconstruction, all of that. And she has sent me a lot of people. But other than that, no one else right now. Basically, it's been word of mouth. And then I'm trying to reach out and you guys were my first thought. So I reached out to you.
Thank you.
And then I'm hoping I can only grow from here.
Oh my God. Yeah. To me, like, you're describing a field that is wide open. And in the United States, Stephen, do you remember how many hospital centers there are that deal with people that are transitioning?
Oh gosh, I don't, but it
not
was
a ton.
It was not a ton. No,
not a ton. And I would think somebody like you would be an incredible asset to be on the team of that, because you have a skill. You're not a doctor.
Yeah.
You don't need to be a doctor, you need to be able to do this, and you're totally trained in doing that. I think the opportunity that would be there would be really, really incredible. Now, have you done any of your friends?
Not yet. I do have a friend that is going. She has had a lot of different breast augmentations, but she's finally going to get an explant, and they told her the likelihood of her areolas and nipples dying is very high.
Okay, what is an explant? Yeah, you know terms that, Tell us.
So an explant is the removal of implants. So she's had 3 different implants, and finally she's taking them out for good. And they told her, since having so many surgeries, the nipples will probably die in the process. So I'll be doing her.
And why does the areola die after a lot of people get their implants removed? What is your friend's reason for finally 3 times is a lot, by the way?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know the technical reason, but I guess because she had such a small chest, going from so small to so large to small again, the tissue expanding and being cut multiple times. It's just not salvageable at this point.
Why did I've seen this, like tiny girls, and then they go put D-boobs on them. You know what? Even if a patient comes in and says they want that, surely as a medical professional and a responsible medical professional, you need to tell the person that's not a great idea.
Yeah.
And at least discuss it with them. I have a number of girlfriends that have had their implants removed because of that whole autoimmune thing that's happened to people from implants. But again, we have another surgery that we're talking about here where they just make it sound like you're going to the supermarket, and you're buying a steak, but it's not that at all. It's surgery.
Yeah. And I guess social media does play a large part in that, because at the time that she had first gotten the implants, like that look of large fake breasts was in. And then, but you have to understand, like going from one size to another, you have to ease into it. So the pain that it caused her was insane. And then going back and forth. And finally, now it's coming to light a little bit that there are breast implant related illnesses that cause like so many different things. So at this point, she is just going to remove hers, and she's finally at peace with everything.
Right, which is really important. And I guess the icing on the areola will be the one you create for her.
Yeah, exactly. And then I got to do so fun the other day. I had a woman reach out to me, and she had asymmetrical nipples, and she was just unhappy with how they looked. And she's like, "Can you make them into heart shapes for me?"
I saw this on your Instagram, right?
Yeah, I posted that. So we just gave her some more symmetry and repigmented them, and they were little heart shapes.
And they're perfectly lined up now.
Yeah.
They look so good. I mean,
they look great.
As natural as a heart areola.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I love it, Stephen, because you know what Marissa's describing. You could get really creative with this.
Yeah, you could.
You could do like a little flower, little flowers.
My mentor, she said the craziest thing she had done was a seashell shaped areola. I was like, how interesting. I would love to see. And she did it like ocean colors. It was like very cool.
That's awesome.
I'm just imagining that in my, so it's like one of those half moon it's not like a conch shell, right?
Yeah, no, the same kind that you're thinking of. Yep.
I was thinking of a conch shell with a nipple in the middle. I'm like, how are we going
to bless.
It's so fascinating what you're sharing with us here tonight. So in the realm of just other cosmetic tattooing, tell us some of the procedures you offer.
So I do eyebrows, either microblading or powder brows.
I'm going to stop along the way because, of course, all of this fascinates me, and I want to be able to share that. I see the word microblading. What is microblading?
So microblading is a procedure. It is a manual hand tool you use, and it creates hair-like strokes. Like you do nice little hair-like strokes to create and eyebrow. So what I would do is we would kind of discuss the look and shape that you're going for. I would measure your right here. I would find your arch and the tails of your brows, and I would map it out according to your facial structure and what you're interested in. Wow. And then if you wanted the look and you have the perfect, if I think it's going to hold well on your skin, I would do microblading. Or if we decide that's not the look you want to go for, if you want to go for more like a makeup-y look, then we would do a powder brow. But microblading is a very natural, hair-like technique.
And I'm very glad that you brought that up, because I think also when you're dealing with someone that's transitioning and facial feminization, this is a biggie. Being able to create like a beautiful feminine brow is a win-win.
Yeah, definitely.
How long does it take to do an eyebrow?
So from beginning to end, from us talking and having a consultation in the beginning, about 2 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. And then along the lines with that as well, I do lip blush too, which enhances your lip pigment. So like with the how you just said, masculine coming to feminine, even the lips, that plays a huge difference too. Like adding just that little bit of pigment can make a huge difference.
Right, in terms of the coloration. So now we are on lips. What kinds of things can you do? Say male to female, and the person had very thin lips to start with. And they want like a more lush, puckered look. Tell me what you would do with that.
So if they wanted more of a puckered look, I would recommend them to get fillers, because you're not going to get that volume. Lip blush just enhances what you already have color-wise.
Now I'm personalizing it. I've been drawing my upper lip ever since I can remember. Can't you do that with a tattoo tool? Like create an upper lip and then fill it in?
Yes, you could. I personally don't like to go outside the vermilion border, which is
the regular, normal, natural. I
would recommend for that, to add more volume for larger, is lip filler, because over time, as it does fade, you want it to look as natural as possible.
Right.
You don't really want to go too far outside the natural shape.
Right.
But I do have some people, you can kind of cheat it a little bit and go outside.
What happens with the brows? Like, will they fade too, and people will have to come in and get a refresher?
Yeah, so I recommend a color boost every year or so, just to keep them looking fresh. Some people may never need a touch-up. Others may need one maybe in 9 months. Your skin also plays a large role in that. Like if you have dry skin with small pores, it's going to last a lot longer. I have very oily skin with large pores, and my brows faded fast, and I see a lot of my clients the same as well. So for someone who has larger pores and oilier skin, I would recommend a powder brow, just because it's going to last the longest and heal the best in your skin type. Because you want what's going to look good in the long run.
Right. What makes it a powder brow? Is it what's in the tattoo?
Yeah. So it's the methods. So microblading is a hand tool. It's a little blade. I wish I had one right now to show you. And you're cutting into the skin in a hair-like stroke. And then the powder is done with a machine, the same machine I would use for an areola tattoo or your lips as well. And it's just a different needle size.
Right.
Nice and slow. And it doesn't go as deep as a traditional tattoo does. So that's why it does fade over time.
Wow. This is like everything you've always wanted to know about tattooing, but was afraid to ask. It's incredibly complex, the amount of things you can do. So while we're talking, I'm thinking, has anyone ever approached you about trying to fix their hairline?
Actually, yes. I would love, if you know anybody who wants that service, I'm actually looking for a model for that. I would love to do that service. So if anybody's watching, you want your hairline enhanced, let me know.
Well, while we're talking about enhancing a hairline, can you take, how people's hair thins as they get older? I'm not talking about a male that's totally bald, because I can't imagine how you would deal with that with a tattoo. But, many females, as they get older, their hair thins.
Yeah.
So what can you do with that with tattooing?
So that is scalp micropigmentation, and it's done with a pointillism technique. So basically, you're going in one at a time on the scalp to kind of create the illusion of a more dense looking skin, just to give it more density. So it's not like, because that is a lot. And then, as you said, bald men, there are a lot of bald men who do get that as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
But what is like maintaining that, in an area where there's no hair to begin with? How often do they have to maintain it?
I would say once every year to 2 years, coming in for a touch up, because I'll send you some pictures so you can see what it looks like of other artists I follow, but it looks beautiful, honestly. And I got into it because I know a lot of women who their hair is thinning rapidly.
Right.
And then honestly, with COVID now, people are seeing a lot of hair loss after having COVID, as well as like a long-term side effect. So
yeah, I had heard that.
Yeah. And if that's something I can enhance for someone and make them feel more confident, I would love to do that.
So I'm curious, when you were at FIT, obviously you weren't majoring in tattooing when you first came in. Tell us where you started when you were there.
I started with fine arts, which is my first true love. I love painting and drawing and expressing myself. I was a fine arts major and a poetry minor. So I've always had a creative background.
And sensitive.
Yes. And I loved it. And then I guess I had my degree in fine arts as my associates, and then I had a panic. I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Am I going to be able to find a job in fine arts? And then I went into product development, and I graduated with that, but it wasn't something that I really loved.
Right.
I could never
thing product development.
Yeah. I could never see myself just sitting at a desk all day long. So I lived in the city, and I actually ended up getting carbon monoxide poisoning. And that's like when I had a whole life epiphany after that, because it was like a near-death experience. And you're like, what am I going to do with my life?
Carry you out of your apartment?
I'm sorry?
Did they carry you out of your apartment?
Yes.
Who found you? I mean, we hear this all the time, but I never met anyone that it happened to.
So I had long-term exposure. It was actually very crazy. So I had went to Paris to visit my girlfriend, and I ended up breaking my wrist and my foot. And I came home, and it was the winter time, and I was just sitting in my apartment, and I would just be there by myself. And I started to get really, really sick. And it was cold and flu season, so the doctors thought nothing of it. And as time went on, months went on, I was so sick. I missed a whole semester of school. I couldn't work.
What was wrong with you? Wow.
It was almost like I had the flu times 10,000. And finally, one day, I thought I was going to die that day. Something in me was like, you have a gas leak, call 911 right now. And I did. Thank God I did, because the amount of carbon monoxide leaking in my apartment was way beyond lethal at that point. I just had long-term exposure. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's the most incredible story.
Now, are you dealing with any repercussions from that now, or are you fully recovered? Or
I'd say at this point I'm fully recovered. I honestly think like it messed with my equilibrium a little bit, like neurologically, because I'm very clumsy. I mean, I think I've always been clumsy, but I feel like it enhanced that. But other than that, I did have short-term memory along that time. And yeah, it was more so in the moment, but it was so crazy once I left that apartment, because I was so sick I wasn't leaving. It was like taking a fresh of breath air and being able to like actually breathe.
Wow. Did you move back to Milford after that?
And then I moved back to Milford. I was bartending for a little bit, and then I started getting, I got my eyelashes done, and I had wanted to get my eyebrows done so bad. I was like, this is something I want. And I did. And I loved it. I loved how it made me feel. And I wanted to give that feeling. So that's when I got into permanent makeup.
Wow. One of the things we uncover on this show is a person's path. I totally love your path, how you ended up there's no doubt in my mind you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. And you will continue to, do fine art. That is such a huge part of you. But look what you're doing to help
I'm
society.
seeing titles of memoirs coming up. How carbon monoxide led me to areolas.
Seriously,
Right?
believe if that didn't happen, I probably would not have moved back to Milford. I probably would have stayed in the city. I would have taken a 9-to-5 job.
Job that you were ready to jump out of your skin going to.
Exactly. I probably would have if that didn't happen. So I believe everything happens for a reason. I'm exactly where I should be.
How did you end up breaking your wrist and ankle in Paris of all those things? You did say you were clumsy, but were you kissing some French man and you fell?
No, this is what I talk about, like social media. I was trying to pose for a picture on some stairs, and this is all photographed too, so it's even funnier. I was taking a picture and I was walking down the stairs, and you see the exact moment that my foot gives out and I tumble down the stairs. Yeah.
That's
wow. Yeah.
You couldn't sense where to take the right step. Well, because you said it, my husband's really clumsy.
Yeah.
So when my daughter is too, she always says it. So yeah, you don't have the same senses as someone would know not to take that step. There's people that would know that.
Oh yeah. I look back at it now, it's very funny, but at that moment it was like, oh my God,
that had to be like devastating. But the irony, Marissa, is the clumsy person is the one with the fine hand.
Yes.
And paint and draw and create beauty in people. You know what? So that's the only kind of talent that you need to have, not walking up and down the stairs. Look what you can do.
So initially when the show started, we had like people ask questions. So we'd always open the floor for questions, but for a while there, we weren't getting too many questions. But tonight, honey, let's dive into some of them. So Simone's asked a number of them, but the first one, and this one's kind of a little more technical, but she said, how far along would somebody have to be on hormone replacement therapy, or do you go by Tanner stages to get the areola tattoo?
So as far as hormone therapy, everything I need doctor's approval saying that you're ready for the tattoo. So as long as your doctor says, okay, this is the time for you, then that's all I need. But I do need that doctor consent and approval to go there, as if you're on hormone therapy or after surgery as well.
That's great to know.
Yeah, helpful.
Okay, so let's keep going. So one of our former guests, John Jegan Griffin Attil, asked,
I love him.
Say nothing much can go wrong, but what could go wrong? I have no clue.
Yeah.
I guess what could go wrong if I'm trying to think. Could make them too big. Luckily, that's never happened. I create the shape first, and then I work my way from out to in. So I could see someone maybe going the opposite way, going from in to out, and then just expanding too much as far as color. Or maybe someone picking incorrect colors that don't match and don't complement the skin tone. Or even improper aftercare. You can be at risk for infection if you're not taking care of your tattoo. I bandage everybody up, and the bandages stay on for a week. And you don't want to submerge into any water during that time. They're okay in the shower, but you don't want to risk yourself to any kind of infection. So that is definitely a possibility, something that could go wrong. But I tell my clients over and over again, I'm like, you got to follow this strictly. I like to pound it in their brain. So nothing like that happens.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, don't play around with it. This is the next step to a more complete future.
Yeah, so, it is serious stuff.
As RuPaul would say, don't fuck it up.
Exactly.
So Simone had another question. This one I'm really curious about too. Can a person choose the size they would like for an areola?
Of course. So I like to give my opinion as well. They could choose their size, but you want what's going to complement your body. You don't want something that's going to be improportionate to your breast size as well. I have a lot of women that, for my breast cancer survivors at least, they had a much larger breast prior to having any kind of surgery or going through anything. And they think they still want that larger areola, but it doesn't complement their breast size. So, you know, we kind of go back and forth and talk about it, because I always include a touch up in case anything, any color lightens up a little bit. And I want to see how they heal as well. So if I'd rather start off smaller and more conservative, and then if you still would like to go bigger at that point, we totally can.
Yeah, that seems a smart thing to do.
So, I mean, again, dealing with survivors or people going through this, I mean, to have to tell somebody, you know, no, we should probably start a little smaller. I mean, it's such a great thing. I mean, but also you have to think, oh my gosh, you're almost having to let someone down almost. That's so
right.
But they, after that, they're like, wow, you were right. Thank you. That's like, I take their feelings into consideration, but as well as how I think they're going to feel long term. Like, you are so used to having one thing and then having another, you want it to match, and you want it to match your insides and your outsides. So, but usually,
is there ever a chance of the areola fading where you need a retouch?
Yeah, so it typically will fade. That's why a touch-up is usually needed and included. The color will fade a little bit, and that's when you go back in and just touch up the little spots that need it. So when, say, if someone didn't have a nipple either, and I do the entire areola and nipple, usually the outer areola will fade more than the nipple does.
More than the nipple will. Wow. Yeah. How do you? Because a nipple, so an areola is a somewhat flat area, but then a nipple is a raised area. How do you address it when somebody doesn't have a nipple?
So honestly, those are my favorite ones to do, because you have that artistic license to just give it all. And that's what I do see the most, is when there's nothing there at all and I'm building it from scratch. Wow. So, I mean, thank God for art school, because I have that knowledge of like
how to give depth,
light and shadow, and building dimensions. So
it really is incredible. Your fine arts background, you know, for someone to be doing what you're doing, they really need a fine arts background. They have got to have that sense of shape and color and proportion and a feeling that would come from that, you know? I don't think that just knowing how to do great tattoos can do the area that you're working in. You know, you need that background.
Yeah. And then back to what we were saying earlier, like, in this area, at least, there are doctors who were doing their own tattooing, because there are no paramedical tattoo artists, or not enough of them in the area. And one doctor I had spoken to, they had said, you know, I'm doing them, but they're not great. So yeah, it's sad. And you see that a lot, because they want to start the surgery complete to finish and kind of just give them that finishing touch, but they're special. Like, I'm not going to go do surgery on someone.
Of course.
Well, Marissa, we always like to, before we head out, give the floor to our guest. Are there any plugs you'd like to make about yourself, about any others, anything you're interested in? The stage is yours.
Oh my goodness.
Pressure.
I guess if anybody has any questions and wants to speak privately, they could always email me or message me on Instagram, and we could discuss anything. I know that you cater to the tri-state area as well. So if someone can't make it to Milford, my studio is in Middletown, New York. So even if I'm more than happy to do this whenever. So any questions, just let me know.
Okay. So yeah. So you can see it up on the screen, but you can follow Marissa on Instagram at Browzin Around.
Love it.
And you can see heart-shaped areolas, you can see eyebrows, you can just see all the great work she does.
Yes. Well, I have to say, I'm going to bring you some stuff for the center. I don't even know what day it is. So next week, a lot of the stuff does get taken down on Instagram. So I do have an online portfolio that is in the works right now, kind of finishing up, that you'll be able to scan and see. because Instagram censors a lot of things, even though they are tattoos and they are medical and not going against their guidelines.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm pulling you up right now. I want to, I'm going to mark your site for when I get off. I'm going to go through. I'm really shocked that they pull it down if it doesn't meet a criteria.
Yeah.
And that probably means somebody's reporting it too, which is
see, it's so crazy. Like, even though, like, I have videos of one tattoo I had done, and I argue, like, that one was taken off of Facebook because they think it is an actual areola or a nipple, and it's like considered pornography and all of that. It's so crazy to me.
Crazy.
They are a medical tattoo. So hopefully soon, things will change. Who knows? There is like a big petition going around in the paramedical tattooing community for this to stop, because like the guidelines say mastectomy tattoos and medical tattoos are completely fine. But I guess whatever automatic thing Instagram and Facebook has, it just flags it immediately. So it is hard to spread the awareness as well and to show that these services are available. So thank you guys for allowing me to talk about that.
Well, thank you for coming on the show, and thank you for offering to do this clinic. And I can't wait. And hopefully we can enhance the lives of anybody who needs it.
And hopefully you'll become part of our Triversity family, because you're right in town.
Too late.
Yes, thank you. I would love to be a part.
Fantastic.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Marissa. If you're on YouTube or the Facebooks, give us a like, a follow, a thumbs up, or however you do that. And we appreciate you very much. And with that, we're going to say good night, folks.
Good night, everybody. Stay cool.
And one more thing, we won't be on next week, but we will see you in 2 weeks.
Yes.
So good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.